last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the Silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and anybody else out there. Welcome to another edition of DMR, Dark Matters Radio. Look, tonight we're basically, going to have a rather free-ranging conversation. There's been so much chatter on the web, various forums and what have you, about not only 3I Atlas, this thing that is interstellar, winging its way through our solar system. A lot of people have suggested that it appears, not saying it is, but it has so many questions about it. Many believe that it could somehow be a controlled probe, perhaps. Now, right before the show began, I was talking to both Mark Center, Gerry Kissell. Mark informed me that something else has been discovered. Something that, if you believe what he just told me, is beyond stupendous in size. We're going to hear more about that in just a moment. But if you are out there in the chat forums or anything else, and you have a question you want to get to us, you have a remark, a comment, Gerry is going to be keeping an eye on the forum, and he will funnel it on over to us. So with that being said, let me bring on the guys. Gerry, Mark, welcome. And Mark just had a big soiree this past weekend. He was telling me about it for weeks. He was working. He had a big party out at his home. How'd that go, Mark?
It went great. The weather, we weren't sure about rain. I built a custom-made dance floor a few years ago and had to cover it with plastic because I wasn't sure if it was going to rain. But it all turned out well. No band this time. I couldn't get the band to come in, so we had dancing, we had karaoke, we had wonderful food. What I did this time was that I have 2 projectors, LED projectors, 2 big screens, and basically it's like an MTV dance party type of a thing. And I wanted to try that out to give people something to look at, plus line dancing. I don't line dance. I am never going to line dance, but people seem to like it. So some people would like to line dance, but they don't know how to line dance. So I went on to the YouTubes and I found instructional videos, edited them all up, put the original tune on there and, did all the beats and all that. And it worked. The people that knew how to dance were doing their thing. And the ones who didn't, they actually got up and they were looking at it. They do a mirror thing. And I kind of like that. It's like interactive.
I got to tell everybody that a few years ago, Vicky and I, my wife and I, were out at Mark's for a party that he was having. Yeah. And Mark did something that I've never forgotten. He, among his many other talents, is somewhat of a skilled bartender. And he made Long Island iced tea. Oh my God, was that good?
And I had every party it's expected, so I had a big bottle of it at the party, and I walk around with a Dixie cup, and I say, "Who wants to get lubricated?" And I fill up the Dixie cup halfway, and I tell them, "Look, drink this, wait about 20 minutes," because I said it will mess you up if you're not careful. And that's why there's karaoke. Without the lubrication, there wouldn't be karaoke. Good, bad, or indifferent, there wouldn't be. So,
No, I just have one question for you. Were there any broken hips on the dance floor?
No, there were not any broken hips. No.
I give you 5 stars, Mark Center, for that Long Island iced tea, buddy.
Oh,
5 stars.
Oh, man.
I've had a lot of practice with it. Now it's expected. One of the oldest people there, she said, well, where's that drink? I said, I think you might have a problem. It's only 6:30. I'm ready. So I went and I got it. No, it went real good. Hopefully in 26 we'll have, live bands and stuff. Maybe drag Don and his wife down. She would love it because she could dance with the ladies and, So, yes, it was good times.
Great. That's great. Well, tonight, we didn't have, and I didn't go out on a hunt and search for a guest tonight, because every once in a while, I think it's good just to have the 3 of us on here, and we can kick stuff around. God only knows we're all opinionated. And I thought, well, what in the hell would be to start with anyway, a good topic? Well, obviously, 3-Eye Atlas. Here we are, almost the middle of October. My God, just a couple of weeks, it's going to be Halloween. And this object, this interstellar thing, has been making all kinds of news. There's all kinds of crap, as I'm sure you guys will both attest to. All this stuff being said about it on the internet, mostly by ignorant morons. But, Mark, not only 3-Eye Atlas, but you came up with something that is even more shocking, if true. Why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, this popped on YouTube. I had no idea. This thing is called either C/25R2 or the long one is Comet C/2025R2. And this thing, I think it was in September, it came from around the sun and it showed up, right? And what this guy says, he's sort of a Mark D'Antonio guy. He seems like he's a fairly smart guy. He says that this thing is huge. Now, I tried to find out the estimated mass. The estimated mass of 3-Eye Atlas is 33 billion tons. They don't really know the estimated mass of this new thing, the 25R2, but they're thinking it could be up to 500 times bigger, comes from around the sun. Nobody was expecting it. Nobody saw it. And here's the interesting part. As we hear about 3-Eye Atlas and the craziness, and it's talking and it's alive and it's going to do this, it's going to do that. The 3-Eye Atlas is going to come within basically 170 million miles of Earth. I think it's in December. Okay. Well, that's close in space-wise, but it's not that close to worry about. This giant 2025 R2 on October 20th is coming within 24 million miles, like 150 million miles closer. As Gerry said, it's supposed to be like as far away as the moon from us. It's not as big as the moon, but I find it illogical, as Spock would say, that you have Loeb and these guys spending all their time on 3-Eye because there's very interesting things about it. I get it, the nickel and the this and the that. I asked Don and Gerry if they even heard about this. No. And yet it's coming way, way closer. It's way, way bigger, and it came out of nowhere because it came from around the sun.
Yeah, I know nothing about it until you spam me with your sci-fi nerd crap.
Right. So this doesn't discount from 3i Atlas. It's just this whole information gathering thing that we're into nowadays, saying that it's alive, it's speaking to us, it's going to leave and come back and then settle in and show us movies on the moon, whatever. I just find it interesting that this thing comes through and nobody talks about it. Loeb doesn't talk about it. I'm sure Mark DiAntonio knows about it, but and it's so big and it's coming by so close. I don't know. It's just, what am I to believe, Don? What am I to believe? Should I believe nothing on YouTube except us?
Hey, if it's on YouTube, believe it all.
Yeah. So, again, this doesn't discount the weirdness of 3i Atlas. I can't discount what Brandenburg said. I can't discount what Loeb is saying. One smart guy on YouTube, he said, look, you can't discount the prospect of it being built, of it being some sort of a probe. But if you're going to say that, you should try to come up with some interesting things that point to that. Like, is it made out of graphic fiber, or is it chrome, or is noise coming from it? Is it not round? Is it shaped like the Millennium Falcon and all that stuff? Well, nobody's coming up with any of that. Granted, it's got the nickel thing and all that. But as far as the ET thing, I kind of agree with him, at least at this point. Can anybody point to any strange enough thing to say, well, yeah, there's a good chance it's going to be ET. I don't know about the trajectory and all that. Again, I'm a junior college graduate, so I don't really know about that. But Don and I talked about this while Gerry shook his head yes and played with his ponytail. Right. This is all conjecture, but I find it interesting that the
ponytail or man bun?
Yes.
Okay, fuck off, Don.
that the 3i Atlas is going to be 18 million miles away from Mars on October 3rd. That's pretty close, right? We'll all agree.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be 60 million miles from Venus. Pretty damn close. Going to be 130 million from the sun. However, and this is all conjecture, and Don's right to say this, but I find it highly illogical, as Spock would say, to send a probe out, assuming it's on its right trajectory and course and it hasn't veered off, to send a probe out and have it be very, very close to Mars and Venus and completely bypass by 170 million miles the blue Earth with all of its riches and people and dysfunction and things. Now, some people might say, well, it's going to check out Mars because of the Brandenburg theory and things. Well, Mars evidently might have had people and buildings and stuff long before Earth, so maybe they already knew about that stuff. We're a going concern right now. Venus and Mars aren't. And yet, it's going to fly by us further away by far than those other two. So I have no answers here, but I find that interesting if they are on the trajectory they want to be on. It's like, why check out those two dead planets when we're sitting here with, the Scientology gold and, blah, 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 blah. We have a great planet to come into and suck up the water and we're the meat for the aliens and all that, right? It seems a little odd. So
now I did see a reel on the web a few days ago. No, this is interesting. And now that I think about it, maybe it has something to do with this object you just described.
All right.
But a guy was on there and he said out of the ether, and they showed, and I don't know if it was AI generated or what, but a mass of objects, tiny objects in comparison to 3i Atlas.
Right.
He said they were maybe, each of these dots were the size of maybe a city block, but they were coming in to the solar system. Now, I don't know well, you guys know, I'm so damn skeptical of anything I hear until I see ironclad proof. But now that I think about it, Mark, I'm wondering if it has anything to do with what you've been talking about.
I may have seen something like that. I saw a guy on YouTube saying there's 9 objects that are coming in with the Atlas. But again, I look at this stuff and it's like, just blow it out your ass, man. I'm sick of this. I saw Mr. Rogers and the guy with the frizzy hair who did all the painting. We're going to make the happy tree here. I saw those guys in a wrestling ring wrestling, and I swear to God it looked real. I swear to God, it's the best AI I've ever seen, Don. And obviously they never did that. But I'm looking at this going, my God, the uncanny valley is almost gone with this stuff. We should be worried.
Well, right now there's a cosmic channel on YouTube, which I blocked. They have a AI Michikaku with voice and everything.
I think I just saw that.
Yeah, it's like it's fucking nuts, dude. These people are intentionally doing disinformation because they think it's fun.
Well, also it's the clicks. The clicks is all that matters. I mean,
money,
and then the longer you stay on it as well, right? So I don't know what to think of it. I'm going to be happy when this 3i Atlas has come and gone. Maybe we'll get some cool stuff from it. Is this kind of an analogy that we can use for the 3i? Again, this is coming from a guy who, smoked a lot of grass in high school. Is this a good analogy? We have something that's coming out of our solar system and coming through, and it's possibly made out of weird stuff that we've never seen. It's going to let stuff off that we've never seen something like this do. Is that any different than maybe going to Baalbek and going down 100 feet and finding something odd? Really? Because we haven't seen it, right? So we dig down there or in the ocean and we find something very odd. Is it any different to have something come from far out space and come through and you go, my God, we've never seen this before, and not have everybody freak out, just say, well, yeah, there's stuff on this earth we haven't seen yet. We just haven't located it, dug it up, or whatever.
Well,
right?
one thing we can be sure of, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys have too, I've seen it happen in the past, is that if there is something that has the potential to upturn society as a whole.
In science, yes.
In science coming in, they're gonna hide it. They're going to cloak it. They're not going to talk about it. They very well will be doing secret studies on it. But I wouldn't even be surprised if this thing is surrounded today by an SAP just to keep it away from the public.
Sure.
Until they have no choice.
That's why I always say we need an Independence, Will Smith sort of thing, indisputable, where Don goes out to pick up the dog crap and he looks up and he says, I think that might be real. It's indisputable. It's so freaking big that it's not some kind of a, projection or something like that. I really feel that's what it's.
Well, if this object you're talking about, Mark, is going to be coming in roughly only 20 million miles from Earth, okay, we sure as hell ought to see it.
I would think it would be at least close to the same sort of size as Halley's Comet or something, right? I mean, it should be big enough that we could see it.
Absolutely. And the fact that I have heard no astronomers talking about it. And God, I wish to hell we'd have got a hold of Mark D'Antonio to ask him.
Yeah, I was actually going to do that, but it was so late in the day. I said, well, we could have him on again, and he can clear it up for us. So it's going to come in. The closest will be next Monday. Next Monday.
Wow. Okay.
So, and in fact, we're going to have we have a guest for next Monday. But maybe call D'Antonio and say, hey, you want to come on and do a little like maybe have our first guest on for an hour and him on so he could talk, because it's going to be here that day. So, and I'm sure our first guest wouldn't mind to, be co-guest. So that's up to you, Don.
All right. All right. I'll talk to you guys about it later.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's all I
anyway.
got on that. That's all I got on that. I hate the internet, and yeah, that's it.
Well, let me just ask you both now individually. Gerry, where do you come down on Three Eye Atlas? Do you think it's stranger beyond simply a natural object?
No, I pretty much think it's a natural object. It's but that doesn't mean there's not something weird about it. I don't think it's a probe. But you brought up something before the show though, which it's like it seems like these things are more interested in Mars and Venus than in Earth.
Yes.
And like if they were probes, why would that be? What is the significance of that?
Well, I'll tell you what Zachariah Sitchin told me back in 1989.
Okay.
Back in 1989, he had a new book that came out. And as you know, Sitchin and I were pretty close. And every book he wrote in his Earth Chronicles series, almost every one at one point or another, I book reviewed and ran them in UFO magazine. And when Genesis Revisited came out, and this was the time when that amazing photograph of that huge ellipsoid object was reflected off the atmosphere of Mars. Okay, now what am I talking about? Well, in November of 1991, I broke the story on Larry King Live. I was a guest that night. And I got a photograph from retired Red Air Force Colonel Marina Popovich. Now, if you don't know who Marina Popovich was, she was probably one of the most famous aviators during the communist years in Russia, in the USSR. She was called the female Chuck Yeager, okay? She had trained and everything for every fighter jet they had. She went through their cosmonaut training. Her ex-husband was General Pavel Popovich, who was the first human being back in 1961-62 to rendezvous his spaceship with another Soviet spaceship. This was a first, okay? Now, she basically made available, because she had come over here in April of, I believe it was 91. And I met her here in LA. As a matter of fact, I got her on her first American TV show here. I knew one of the producers over at Hard Copy, a guy by the name of Dean Vallis. I told him about Colonel Popovich, doctor also, I might add, Dr. Marina Popovich. He interviewed her. And she, at that time, now the Iron Curtain had already fallen, okay? It was gone. And if you were around then, and this now is 30 plus years ago, the Russians made everything for sale. Hell, they opened up the KGB, their secret police. They opened up their archives. They were selling crap out of secret KGB archives. And obviously, one of the first things I asked her was about the UFO phenomenon in the former USSR. And I was shocked at how open she was with me. Do I think she was bullshitting me? No, I really don't. She could have. And how the hell would I know? I've never been to Russia. But no, she came across pretty open. And she told me of all the Russian pilots that were killed attempting to pursue these things and knock some of them down, until finally if you're familiar with George Knapp's story back in the 80s, how he went over there after the Iron Curtain came down, of course, and was told about an incident that happened with a Soviet atomic missile battery. They were out on maneuvers. A UFO came in. Suddenly, this battery on its own accord lit up with the UFO hovering above and began a countdown to launch its missiles. Now, this isn't coming from Don Ecker. This is coming from George Knapp.
That's a matter of record. Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, suddenly, as it was getting down to the very end and these missiles would have launched, the UFO apparently turned it off and split. Well, now, what the hell was that? I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was a warning. You mess with us, and buddy, we can mess with you. And subsequently, the Soviets stopped these UFO pursuits, okay? This is after they lost a bucket full of pilots. Now, Popovich brought me a photograph. And this photograph was from their Phobos 2 probe. This was a pair of probes that were launched, okay, in 1988-89, both going to Mars. The first one, Phobos 1, disappeared roughly a month or so after launch. Now, according to the Russians at Glavkosmos, their space agency, the Russians claimed it was a screw-up by a human computer operator and some bad code. That's what caused this thing to disappear. They lost it. However, Phobos 2 got to Mars, all right? Now, what we Americans were not yet aware of, and I've told this story a number of times, but at that point, NASA and Glavkosmos were back channeling, discussing the possibility of a joint Soviet, now there was still an Iron Curtain then, Soviet NASA mission to Mars. That's what they were talking about, a joint Russian-American mission to Mars, manned mission. Now, obviously that never happened, all right? But their probe, Phobos 2, that was sent to Mars, which incidentally was the same probe that took that infamous photograph of that giant ellipsoid object reflected off the Martian atmosphere, took a series of pictures, okay? Now, Sitchin wrote about this in his book, Genesis Revisited. So when I got the book, I immediately read it, okay? And quite frankly, I was blown away, all right? So I called Zach up, and we talked about it. And I said, well, now, what do you think this was all about? He said, well, it took a series of photographs. One of the photographs, and this was in the picture, there it is. This was in the picture off of the Martian moon Phobos. And I said, what the hell is that? He said, well, according to Glavkosmos, that photograph depicts an object that was 25 kilometers long. That's 15 and a half miles, boys and girls, 15 and a half miles, and a mile in diameter. And the Russian probe, Phobos 2, had a very powerful laser on it, okay? Now, the idea was, once it got to Mars, to turn that laser on the Martian moon Phobos and fire a number of bursts into Phobos and then analyze the resultant gas, coming off the moon. And why would they do that? Okay. Well,
what were these bursts, by the way? What were they?
Laser bursts.
Laser bursts. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, not targeting laser, but actual laser that can cut.
Exactly. Like I said, a very powerful laser. And he said the idea originally was the Russians and supposedly NASA wanted to know what Phobos was made out of. Okay. Now, there's also an interesting story about that. But let me get back to the laser. So they were going to fire these bursts when suddenly that's the photograph of the ellipsoid shadow reflected off of Mars. Very good, Mark. Very good. So,
yay.
Suddenly, this object that was 15 and a half miles in length turned toward the Phobos probe before it fired anything. And according to the Russians, not me, but the Soviet Union space authorities, this object rammed their probe, rammed it. And even the Russians publicly said something struck their probe. It turned it into a spinner. That's how it was described. And it was gone, lost. Now, I asked Sitchin. I said, well, what do you think that was all about? He said, well done. If they saw the laser as a threat, well, they hit it. And I said, well, is there anything else that would suggest more was going on than should have been? Oh, yes. And I said, well, what? He said, that probe scanned Mars' surface and it saw a number of hot spots. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, I think the Anunnaki, remember it was Sitchin that brought the Anunnaki and ancient Sumeria, all that to us originally. It was Sitchin's research and scholarship. That's how we know about the Anunnaki today, these supposed ETs. Sitchin theorized and believed that they had originally bases set up on Mars, okay? Bases in the past, many thousands of years ago. Well, in 89, Sitchin believed that some of these bases had been reactivated. Now, boy, talk about that. That's a mind blower if he were correct. And that could explain, well, a lot of things, actually, if you think about it. So, I don't know, guys.
Just because we always have to bring up the internet, right? Here's what AI Overview says about Phobos 2 probe shot down. Phobos 2 probe was not shot down. Its loss was officially attributed to an onboard computer malfunction, although conspiracy theories persist. The probe lost contact with Earth in March of '89, just before completing its mission, and its final transmission included an image of an unusual object, which fueled speculation about an external cause. So when you really read through that, it doesn't give you any useful information. Not really.
It was the Russians, not me, that said that something rammed their space.
Oh, I know, but it does say in the AI thing that, they released the image and it's got an unusual thing in the image and they just nothing to see here. It's like, what's that?
Well, the AI is just going to scoop up the stuff like that,
right? But
try to feed it to you.
In 10 years, all the college kids at that point out of high school will be using AI for sure for everything, right? So That's one of the problems. So we have a couple of questions here for Don because he's the silverback.
Yeah, from Michelle. Michelle, she wants to know, because we're talking about legitimate. Who do we pay attention to? Who do we listen to? And so she wanted to know who is legitimate to us,
or what, like cases and things.
No, she was talking about who we consider legitimate.
Well, no, she said what who. So. See? What who?
I ignored the first word. I figured that's a typo.
She wants me to do what? Name names?
Well, yeah, like if there's people out there.
I brought up Brandenburg and D'Antonio are two people that we pay attention to. So others
Kevin Randall. In all the years I've known Randall, and I've known him since 89, 90, so it's been quite a while. I've always found Randall's research meticulous. Now, at the risk of sounding like I'm blowing my own horn, I've tried to do absolutely legitimate, spot on research.
That's why you're not liked.
Yeah,
Don Ecker's not fun. He won't tell stories.
Yeah,
he won't listen to my bullshit.
Hey, Don,
I have called a few people out.
That's true.
In my past.
No way, not you.
Yes.
I always forget his name. He's still out there now. He wrote those 3 books, and the first one was exceptional. Big
Dolan?
book. Yeah, Dolan. I mean, that first book that guy wrote, man. I mean, I think what's the name of that book again?
Can't. Yeah, it was. I forget now. I'm sure you guys can find it right away.
Yeah.
I did the very first book review on Dolan's original book. I think it was UFO history from 47 to 73, something like that.
I think it's this one. I think it's UFOs and the National Security State.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I gave that book 5 stars.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, even Dave Aaron read that thing and he almost exploded. I mean, he just loved that thing.
Well, Dolan for years used excerpts from my review on his website.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
the other books. Now, one thing Dolan did do, and he never explained why, and this always kind of irked me. And hey, we all know being a curmudgeon is not just a name, it's a lifestyle, right? And by the way, I wore that shirt over to the VA today, although nobody got to see it. So anyway, he called me up one day. This is when Vicki and I were still publishing UFO magazine. And anybody that's followed me for any length of time know that years past, I did a number of exposés on some very bullshit people in the UFO field.
Yes,
People
you
that
did.
were scamming, liars, hoaxers, you know. And one of the people I did a series of exposés on was a guy by the name of Milton William Cooper, Bill Cooper. Now, I knew Cooper, okay? This is what most people are not aware of. I knew him from the second Cooper surfaced in July of '88. And he surfaced on the Paracast, or I'm sorry, the Paranet BBS system, Paranet, okay, which was originally founded by a guy by the name of Jim Spicer down in Fountain Hills, Arizona. Later was taken over by a fellow by the name of Michael Corbin. Okay, all these guys were friends of mine. And so anyway, I read Cooper's original, basically thesis that he put up on the Paranet, okay? And I was interested, and I got in touch with him. And at first, we had a very cordial relationship. Well, there were a lot of things happening then. Okay. There was Bill Moore and Jamie Chandra. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with those names, at that point in time, Bill Moore was probably the premier UFO researcher in the United States and around the world. Why? Well, he was the first man who wrote a book about the events at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. Up to that point, nobody knew about Roswell. Finally, the story, parts of it broke in one of the tabloid newspapers, okay? And people started talking about it. Well, Moore's book came out, and that initially, around 1980, lit the field up. And he was a premier guest speaker at just about every UFO conference, symposium, or anything else. Now, in 1987, another guy popped up. And that guy popped up at the Washington, D.C. UFO Symposium. His name was John Lear. Now, probably everybody, in passing at least, has heard Lear's name. Well, who was he? Well, he was the son of William Lear of Learjet and Sigler Corporation. He was a commercial pilot, okay? Held practically every certificate the FAA offered. During my war, Vietnam, he flew for what turned out to be a CIA contract airline, Continental Air, okay? Now, at the time, nobody knew a lot of this. Later, as Lear became more and more and more famous and ultimately infamous, all right, he was being billed as a former CIA agent. Total bullshit. He was not. But he was an employee of a CIA contract airline. Now, what made Lear significant is for when he came out of the shadows, basically, and I got to know Lear very well. As a matter of fact, not long after what I'm about to tell you, I flew down to Las Vegas, where John lived, spent some time with him down there. And oh my God, the stories I could tell you about that. But
lot
at
of
any rate,
cocaine.
the stories I could tell, and maybe I'll tell some of them. But anyway, so here we
Will
were.
that be a paid show? I'm just curious.
No, well,
They gotta pay to
I
watch?
could do a paid for view. Who knows? But anyway, here we were. John Lear wrote a paper known today collectively as the John Lear hypothesis. Now, what initiated that? Well, in Vietnam, Southeast Asia, because not all of this took place in Vietnam. There were other places, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, okay? Lear was in that, what the hell do you call them, that jackbooted soldiers for a fortune kind of bullshit, okay? Where these civilian pilots all ran around with their 9mm silenced automatics and their submachine guns packed away in their back, pack, and that kind of stuff. But Lear knew some guys in the Air Force that were flying secret recon type missions. One of these guys he knew very well. And they got together somewhere. I wasn't ever clear on where this was when he told Lear what he told Lear. But he said, UFOs, he said, well, you heard what happened in England, right? No. RAF Woolbridge. Okay, what? He said, well, on Christmas, 1980, they had a UFO land right outside of the base. Well, we all know today about that, right? We all know the story about that. So that piqued Lear's interest. And he began doing some work and research. But here's the kicker. One of the people John went to was Dr. Paul Benowitz.
Benowitz, yeah.
If you don't know who Paul Benowitz is, God damn, you better get doing some research. He was the man, a scientist, a civilian, all right, who had some Air Force contracts. And back in the late 70s, the early 80s, and it must be said, Benowitz always had an interest in UFOs, all right? He stumbled over some secret project that probably not only the Air Force, but the NSA, National Security Agency. You don't get any deeper, you don't get any blacker than NSA, okay? He stumbled over that. And somewhere along the line, Benowitz became convinced that this was an extraterrestrial incursion. Well, he started talking to everybody about it. He even went to a senator, okay, trying to kick up dust and raise hell. The Air Force, OSI, tried to get him to shut up. He refused. Well, what they did then, the government, the freaking military, they mounted a huge disinformation campaign against Benowitz. One of the operators of that ended up being an asshole buddy of Bill Moore. And that guy's name was Rick Doty. That's a name that ought to be familiar because you see his mug these days all over the goddamn internet. Doty with all his secret UFO shit. Well, what most people don't know is that Doty led point on Benowitz. Now, why is this important? Because, and later, I got Moore off to the side. We had a heart-to-heart talk. As it turned out, Moore had been recruited by Doty to assist in the disinformation campaign mounted against Benowitz, which ultimately caused Paul Benowitz to have a complete mental collapse, and he ended up in a mental facility. Now, what were they doing to him? Well, when he would leave his house, they would have professional black bag operatives break into his house, rearrange his furniture, rearrange his photographs on the walls, that kind of stuff. And it began playing on Benowitz. He became so paranoid that he started stashing firearms in every goddamn corner of his house. Moore told me that he went over there one time on behest of his government handlers and sat there with Benowitz while Benowitz smoked 28 cigarettes in about a 45-minute time period. He would light them, puff them a while, put it out, grab another one, light it, puff it, put it out. Okay, they drove the man fucking insane.
That's clear.
And that's something I can never forgive. What?
That's clear neuroses. They're causing him to become neurotic. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so to get back to my original story, and like I said, this is a hell of a story. So Bill Moore, one of his claims to fame in the late 80s was something, and Jamie Chandra, who had been an NBC allegedly news producer. They were asshole buddies at the time. And Chandra, by the way, just fucking disappeared. They allegedly got a document in the mail sent to Chandra's house in Arizona. Or no, wait, I'm sorry, maybe it was here, with a postmark from Arizona called the MJ12 documents. Okay. Now, what were they? They were supposedly a briefing document for then incoming President Dwight Eisenhower in 1953. And the MJ named allegedly all the top scientific and military personnel that were in on the overall UFO thing. Now, that document caused chaos for years, and it lit the field, the UFO field, such as it was, on fire. Now, Moore was one of the top proponents of this. There were other people, like Stanton Friedman, who was convinced, well, I mean, Stanton thought that a lot of this was real too. Now, remember, Stanton had been working on this since the 50s. Originally, Stanton Friedman was one of the people that, let me see, how much time do we have before we got to go to break? Bill, how many minutes do we have? 5.
Yeah, 5.
Okay. So, Stanton Friedman, now Bill Moore, Jamie Chandra, and some others, okay, were all on the MJ12 bandwagon. There were others that weren't. There were people in MUFON that weren't sold on that idea. So suddenly, out of the ether, Bill Cooper pops up. Now, Cooper's original story was that in 1966, while a crew member on a diesel U.S. naval submarine, okay, they were surfaced and they were going somewhere on the surface. Cooper said he had been a lookout up on the bridge of this submarine, and suddenly this thing, this gigantic object, according to Cooper's original description, about the size of an aircraft carrier, came out of the ocean, flew up into the clouds, and suddenly, a short time later, probably the same object, came back down, got into the ocean. Now, this was his original report to Paranet and Jim Spicer. And that's one of the reasons originally I got in touch with him. Well, suddenly, Cooper's story, and I've seen this happen many, many times over the years, exploded. He was no longer just a quiet observer. He claimed to have been a part of a naval intelligence briefing team in Hawaii. And my God, the stuff that were in those files, according to Bill Cooper, okay, ranged everywhere from the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy as president, his assassination, and a secret non-constitutional treaty that Cooper claimed was signed between this alien nation and the United States government. Well, I don't want to get too much further into this because, guys, we're going to have to go to break. But do you have anything to say before we go to break?
Well, you got some questions, but I'll save them for the second hour.
Marky Mark?
No, I'm fine. I'm trying to do a little bit of research on a question that just came in.
Okay, well, we still got a couple of minutes before we go to break.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd like to say this. Do you think that a similar thing was tried to be done to Linda Moulton Howe when she claimed she was called into her room and showed stuff? Could it have been the same sort of deal that they tried to do?
Absolutely. Back in the mid 80s, Linda Howe was, I believe, a producer on special type projects for HBO. And we all know Linda Howe, back in the late 70s, early 80s, produced an award-winning documentary called A Strange Harvest on the cattle mutilation phenomenon. She had been a reporter traveling all over the West and Southwest, researching these cattle mutilation cases that were happening everywhere. Hundreds, if not thousands, of cattle. Okay. And she was hired by HBO to do a documentary. And one of these Air Force agents, and it might have been Doty, I'm not sure about that, but it might have been Doty, but somebody from the Air Force came in to see her and said, well, we understand, and I'm paraphrasing, but we understand you're getting ready to do a documentary on UFOs for HBO. How would you like some real footage
Like an
of a
alien autopsy,
UFO
Don?
landing? Yeah. Well, they strung her along until it was time to pull it out and show the goods, and they just suddenly disappeared. Okay, they left her hanging. So yeah, those are the kind of games those guys play.
All right.
Absolutely.
It's the same shit that goes all the way back to the supposed footage of the Air Force guys. Yeah, we got to go to break.
We got to go to break, gang. Look, we got more coming up. Stick around, and who knows what the hell you're going to hear tonight. And guess we're back. Are we back? Yeah, I guess so.
Yes, we are. Point of order.
Yes.
So, in a general sense, because you've been at this a long time, so I'll use the alien autopsy as a jumping off point if you'd like to go down this path. So when that came out, there were a number of people who came forward and said, I saw this footage. I saw it either at Disneyland, or I saw it in the military, or I saw similar footage that looked very close. And I'm sure that you could come up in your memory banks with other people who, after the fact, much like Jaime Maussan in his videos, when he would release them and then he would look for witnesses after the fact, after everybody sees them on 60 Momentos. Talk about the psychology a little bit. And did you ever hear of anybody who came out after the fact who actually had something to stand on to, like, maybe not prove what they were saying, but you say, wow, this guy might not be telling a fib here. Where we know at the autopsy, those people who said that they saw the same thing are lying.
Well, okay, the psychology of it. This gets to what I was originally gearing toward with Bill Cooper.
Right, that's right.
Okay. Cooper originally came out with a very believable story. Okay. He's certainly not the first guy to have seen or claim to have seen unusual things at sea, usually with U.S. naval personnel. But the funny part was when suddenly these stories begin to explode and garner more and more and more and more information. And I've seen it over the years, especially being the director of research at UFO Magazine, with hundreds of people, okay? This is what happens. Many of them get a bit of notoriety, or they become the flavor of the week. Okay? The flavor of the week. And this happened with Bill Cooper. Cooper, and there were other ones, Clifford Stone, another name that gets kicked around. I knew Stone very well. And Clifford originally became known because he dug out some really important documents. But as years went by, suddenly his role, according to him, expanded into basically becoming the 007 of UFOs.
Right, right.
One of the stories he told, and this was after Vicki and I were forced to take partners with UFO magazine. Okay. William Burns and his wife became part of the magazine. And basically standards at that point went to shit. Now, we would never have allowed the crap that ended up being put in that magazine when we were the sole stewards of it.
Absolutely.
My wife.
I stopped subscribing to it because it was just crap. It turned to crap.
My wife was a journalist, a real, honest to God, college degreed, college educated journalist. She worked for news organizations before she began UFO magazine. I was a criminal investigator. I was geared directly at what can we prove? What are the facts? Not the bullshit surrounding a topic. What can we prove? Okay. And I'll never forget this issue that was coming out under Burns, where he took a story that Clifford Stone wrote. Well, I was privy to everything in there. And like I said, I knew Stone. I grabbed this thing and I read it. It was the biggest bucket of horse shit I ever read. In it, he claimed that he was operating on behalf of this mystery colonel on UFO stuff that involved everything from recovering crashed craft, bodies, etc. And that when he would receive in Vietnam at a fire base, this is what he claimed. He would receive a notification that he had to crawl through the wire out into the bush to meet this mystery colonel. Fucking VC and everything all over the place, but he would go out. He would go out and meet this guy. This is what he claimed. This was in his goddamn article.
Super important, Don. Come on.
Well, now look, Cliff today is deceased.
Yeah.
He died a few years ago. And I don't mean to pile on him, but bullshit is bullshit. Cliff looked like a walking pear. Okay, the fruit, a walking pear with legs. All right. He smoked like a chimney.
Yeah.
All right. And the idea of Cliff crawling out through the concertina wire, through mines and everything else, I read that. And of course, Burns was no goddamn vet. He never served a day in the military. And I did. Hell, I got 2 Purple Hearts to prove it. Well, I read that and I said, I can't agree to this. He said, what do you mean? Why not? I think everybody should have their say at the magazine. Everybody. But if you disagree with it, write a counter article. Well, by God, I did. Okay. I wrote a counter article. What I'm talking about, the psychology of this is, in a way, like mission creep, if you know what I'm talking about.
That's what I want to bring up. Yep.
Mission creep.
Yeah.
As time went on, Cliff needed more and more and more notoriety. And he would come up with more and more bullshit. Okay?
Right.
Now, one day, this is also a story I told in the past. There may be people out there today that are not aware of it. But a UFO magazine back in the mid-90s, I got a call one day from Clifford Stone. And he said, "You're not going to believe what had just happened to me, Don." And I said, "Okay, what happened?" "Well, this stranger," now, Stone lived in Roswell, New Mexico. Okay, that's where he was at. "These three guys came up in a car one day to my house. And one of them got out and come up to the door, knocked on the door, and said, 'Cliff, get your jacket, come with us. We want to show you something.'" Well, now, imagine, if you will, this happened to you, all right? Some guy you don't know from the backside of the moon comes up to your house, doesn't introduce himself or anything else, but he knows your name. He says, "Hey, Mark, get your jacket. Come on with us. We want to show you something." Well, what's most people going to say?
No.
"Who the hell are you? Get the hell unass my AO." Okay? Gary, you know what that means.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, I said to Cliff, I said, "Well, what'd you do?" He said, "Well, I went and got my jacket, but I slipped my 357 into my inside pocket." Now I could feel the bullshit bubbling over. Okay? So I said, "What happened?" "Well, we drove out into the desert, okay, and they stopped and they told me to get out, and I got out and there's nothing around." And I said, "You didn't know these?" "Oh, no, I didn't know these guys." "Well, what happened?" "Well, the first guy came up to me and said, 'Cliff, I know you brought your gun. I want you to pull that gun out and shoot me.'" This is what he's fucking telling me on the telephone. Okay? So you can imagine my attitude by that time, but I thought, nah, shut your goddamn mouth, Ecker. Let him talk. So I said, "Okay, well, he told you to shoot him. What happened?" "Well, I pulled my gun out and I shot at him." I said, "What?" He said, "But hey, nothing happened." And I said, "Nothing happened? What kind of gun was it?" 357. "Magnum loads?" "Yeah." "And you shot him?" "Well, I shot at him and nothing happened." I said, "Cliff, I can't put up with any more bullshit today. Goodbye." And I hung up on him. But this is the kind of bullshit I'm talking about, the psychology. You have to be more and more outrageous to get noticed. Why? Well, you get asked to appear at conferences. You get asked to write articles. You get asked to do this and do that. And it all stops if you stop with the stories. And this has been a UFO problem from day number one.
Yeah. You got how did the documentary, whether you like it or not, that's a big deal. I mean, I never made a movie, so it takes a lot of time and effort to do something like that, and it got some pretty good response. And then she goes on to trying to sell stills of ETs that are proven to be taken from a video game.
You're talking about Linda Howe. You're talking about that
right.
hoax case in Brazil?
Well, not only. Well, let's just say there's been a number of things that she's been involved with that have soured people to her situation, right? Because you got to keep up. Musan is the same way. Greer, I don't care if you like him or not. In the early 90s, when he did his first disclosure thing, I have to hand it to him. He went to the press club and he had a lot of people there to speak. Okay, I never looked into those people, but he did. Pilots and people who work for the government.
One of them was a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, Carl Wolf, who, and that's another little story that bears a rewatch. who ended up being dead in a very mysterious manner.
Okay. But I think you would agree with me that at least that episode that Greer put together was not a problematic episode. He was actually trying to do something. But again, then he goes into the mummies and he goes into everything else. And now we have, let's put them all together. Grush, To the Stars Academy, Lou, and they're saying, "Well, I just got this sent to me, and I don't know what it is, but I got nothing else."
Forget Lou and the To the Stars. Forget that whole.
They're all
shit.
disinformation people. They're all disinformation.
I'm just saying that they're adding
Grush,
to it.
I'll give Grush a little room, a little wiggle room. Okay, for me, this is my personal opinion. Grush displayed a lot of personal fortitude. He was cautioned. I mean, his superiors gave him the okay to come out and testify before Congress. He was very upfront that none of this stuff have I personally seen. This stuff was relayed to me at best second, third hand. This is what I was told. Some of the stuff I was told I cannot disclose in these public hearings, but I will go into a skiff with you if you want to know more about it. Now, the problem I had with all of that testimony, and it doesn't bear on Grush, okay, this is not his problem, but when he was testifying before Congress, one of those people asked him if anybody ever died while pursuing this. Now, that opens up a lot of doors, okay? Died how? Had a heart attack, got hit by a car, ended up 6 times in the back of the head, worst case suicide I ever saw, okay? That kind of stuff. And Grush said, yes. Not one swinging dick in that dickless congressional hearing had the fortitude to say, give me more details. Now, granted, I was a cop. That was one of the things that would have piqued my interest right there on the spot. But I want chapter and verse.
Yeah, but they're not going to tell you that in an open forum.
Again,
we don't know if they didn't go to
skiff.
the skiff.
Right.
We have no idea.
I'd have drug his ass into a bathroom. Talk, you son of a bitch.
I'm just saying. The only problem I have with Grush is there's nothing to come from that. Nothing. They're stories. And he was upfront about that. They're stories. He did say, I'll talk to you in the skiff. We're never going to hear that. Okay? We're never going to. Burchett, I saw him on a video today, and he said, look, we're never going to get, this is Burchett, the congressman. He said, we're never going to get disclosure. And if you think that you're going to go out to some spot and see stuff, as soon as they tell you that you can come out, there's not going to be anything there. It's just
you read my paper on disclosure, right?
Yeah.
He
said,
and I said that 2 years ago.
Well,
disclosure,
right.
That's a pipe dream. And
here's
who sucks into it? The believers, the ones that don't deem it important enough to do some damned research on this subject.
Well,
read a few books.
Here's what Burchett said. He said, you know how you're going to get disclosure? To have somebody come out of one of those test places on his own, risk his life and his career, and post something on YouTube or whatever that can be confirmed, something very odd, something clearly extraterrestrial.
Okay, now that's a great place. That's a great place to mention Carl Wolf. Okay, Carl Wolf. That name sound familiar to you?
No, I don't remember.
Well, Carl was a personal friend of mine, and I met him back at UFO Magazine in the very early 90s. Carl had one hell of a story, okay? Back in 66, he was and he was one of the speakers at Greer's first news conference, Mark. Okay. He had been a young electronics technician with a security clearance, authorized to work on top secret electronic equipment. Now, what was going on in 66? Okay. We were sending up obviously unmanned because it was 66, probes to the moon to photograph the moon. Apollo was moving along. They were looking for places to possibly land the astronauts when they finally went there, all that kind of stuff. And this is how those early 1966, how those probes worked. They would go up, place the probe in a certain orbit, and it would go in orbit around the moon, okay? And the cameras would be facing down, shooting strips of terrain, lunar terrain, one strip after another. And inside the craft, these things would be developed. And they would beam the telemetry back to Earth, okay? So there was an Air Force base at Langley, Virginia. Yeah, the same place where that bunch called Christians in Action have their headquarters, okay? Christians in Action. So his commander calls Wolf in, and he said, we just got a call from over at the air base at Langley that one of their printers went out of whack. It's not working. So I want you to go over there, check it out, see what the deal is, right? Well, okay. Now, if you've ever been in the military and if you've ever had a job that needed security clearances, okay, one thing that they do after you're vetted, and I went through the process because I had a top secret security clearance, okay, with the stuff I was doing. I went through the process. After you're vetted, they'll give you an ID security badge, and by God, don't you freaking ever lose that, all right? So Wolf checked, yeah, he's got his badge here, it's under his shirt, so he goes over to Langley, to the air base, goes in, he's checked in, all right? He goes into this big, like, hangar-like room. And this is the story he originally told me, and we ran this story in UFO Magazine. I brought Carl on Dark Matters Radio, where he told the story again. So, I mean, this is pretty well vetted. And Greer had him as one of his speakers at his news conference. So, who's running their printer?
Not me.
I think it's a fan.
It's what?
I think it's a fan, and on Mark's one is. I just told him in private that I can hear your fan.
Shut up. I'm fat, man. Come on.
Okay. So anyway, he walks into this big room, okay, and he said all kinds of people there. All these people, and he said they were foreign scientists. And I said, foreign scientists? How do you know they were foreign scientists? He said, well, this was that moon thing, right? He said, and I went in there, here were all these people milling around, okay? Obviously, a lot of them were not from the United States. They were talking in accents and all this kind of stuff. So he walks up to this guy, tells him who he is. He said, where do I go? So the guy directed him to a door. So he goes up to the door, opens it, walks in. He's in this room with all this electronic equipment, and there's one lone airman in there, okay, keeping an eye on the place. So Carl tells him who he is. He said, which piece of your equipment is not working? Let me look at it. So the guy shows him it was a printer. So he starts going through his checklist. Turns out one of the components in the printer blew up, fried, whatever, okay? So Carl got on the horn, called up his boss, he said, this is what we need. Have this component sent over. So he's standing in there with this guy. And this guy, he said he could tell there was something troubling him. He said it was obvious. He had a wrinkled brow and he was looking perplexed and weird. And he said suddenly this kid, and he was a young kid, turned around to him out of the blue. And he said, we found a base on the moon. And Carl looked at him and he was shocked, like, what? A Russian base? You know, and who else at that time would have possibly had the wherewithal to put a base on the moon? Well, we didn't have that wherewithal then. And of course, neither did the Russians. And the guy shook his head. No, it's somebody else's base. And he showed him some photographs that they got printed out before the printer went down. And when Carl's telling me this, I said, my God, well, what'd you see? He said, I saw like antenna arrays, what looked like satellite dishes, big domed buildings. I saw other buildings pretty high up. And he's describing all this stuff. And I said, my God. And he said, yeah. He said, well, here's the weird part. I was convinced. Now, I will say this about Carl. Hell of a great guy, he really was. But he was kind of naive. You know what I mean? You have those friends, really nice people, but they're naive. Like sometimes you wonder, my God, how can he even think that? Hadn't he been around a while? But that was Carl. And he said, I went home that night, turned on the news. All that week, I turned on the news. I was sure they were going to announce this. Well, they never did. Okay. Well, this was all high security, all classified. Okay. And I'm sure Carl Wolf knew the penalties. Well, that was 66. Well, here we are 30 plus years later, and he's starting to talk about it. And he was getting more and more traction. Well, one day, okay, Carl was a physical health fitness nut. He was out riding his bicycle, and suddenly, out of nowhere, came a truck, plowed into him, killing him, and then ran, a hit and run. Never did find out. Never did find out. Now, my question is, because, you know, sometimes those things do happen. Here in LA, my God, hit and runs all the time. But might there have been more to it than that? I have no way of knowing. So but that's something that always stuck in my mind.
So it's interesting, and I'm not poo-pooing a story. It's interesting that from telescopes that, and of course it would be great to have Mark here, but telescopes that you can have at your house in your backyard, if you live in a place that's clear and all that, you can see some pretty clear close-up stuff on the moon. Granted, you can't see the flag, you can't see the car, you can't see where they landed. But
these alleged facilities are not on the front of the moon, Mark. They're on the far side of the moon, the side that never faces us.
Right. So one thing that we are to believe is that there's nothing of interest on our side of the moon that can be seen from a non-controlled source. And that's not entirely true. Well, I don't believe Hoagland, for one thing. So.
No. I did 20 plus years of lunar research.
Yeah.
I garnered hundreds of photographs, the majority of them from NASA archives.
Right.
Okay. there are some very weird things in there. I'm
There's
just
some
saying.
weird things, right? I'm not. We would have to ask Mark D'Antonio something like this: with what's available for a few $1,000s, if I live, somewhere where it's clear with no pollution from light and all that, while I may be not able to see the NASA equipment up there and stuff. Am I able, with a very expensive, good piece of kit, to be able to see some of the stuff that Don showed? And I saw the photos. Am I able to see that stuff? Because I always bring up the same point. And I got into it with Brandenburg about this, as much as I love Brandenburg. Why are we always depending on NASA and the rest of them? Because in some of these issues, possibly we can do it on our own, much like the 3i Atlas. We don't need NASA to show us, right? We've seen photos as good as what they've shown. Of course, they shut it all down because of the shutdown, don't you know, Don? Don't you know they shut everything down because of the Republicans and the Democrats not being
Hey,
able?
I went to the VA today. It was totally shut down.
It might have been because of the holiday, but who knows? It would be nice to be able to move beyond. And it kind of annoyed me on YouTube, Don, when they were talking about, well, the NASA stuff was shut down because of the shutdown. Well, Don, you know better than anybody. There are a lot of things pointed to the moon and the sky and all that has nothing to do with America. Nothing.
Hey, I'm still pissed off because the United States Army owes me a goddamn Thanksgiving dinner that I didn't get in 71. Okay? 1971. All right? And I've been waiting ever since to get that Thanksgiving dinner.
So
Never
I
happened.
sent you guys a couple of photos of Atlas, not from NASA, and I sent those to you guys. Granted, we have to wait some more time, I guess, to get the stuff from other places, but we're always falling back on what we can do as America, right? Because we live in America. And it's like, well, other people are taking photos of this thing. Other people are putting this stuff out, not just NASA. And, is it a conspiracy that they closed it all down because of the government shutdown? I don't know. I have no clue.
A lot of weird things get covered up by that shutdown, let me tell you. But
oh no,
one thing I do got to say. One thing I got to say. And granted, anybody out there with TDS may get pissed off about this.
Uh-oh.
But I give President Trump full credit for finding funds to pay our military men and women.
Sure.
He ordered Pete Hegseth to do it, and he did it. Yeah.
Damn right. And how many would do it? Would Joe Biden do that?
Nope.
Would Obama have done that?
So to get off the politics, can either of you guys show the photos that I sent you? The one I sent it to your emails, both of you, and
I can't. I can't get to them now.
I'm sorry, Mark. I have trouble understanding whiny bitch.
Hey, people are saying in the chat that nobody's sending out information about 3i Atlas. Well, I sent you guys some information.
Hold on, I'll pull them up. Let me pull them up.
Or you can pull them up. That's up to you.
Yeah, this is one here.
Now be careful, Mark. Or I'm sorry, be careful, Gary. Be careful. Don't get your man in the way.
I don't want someone coming to my house and saying, "Hey, Gary, come with me. We got some stuff to show you."
And I want to see your man bun.
That's a fucking ponytail, bastard. Hey, while we have a second here, I do want to go quickly through some of these questions. From Michelle Royce, what is the possibility of mini UFOs being human-made or secret?
Of course. We just had those drones. Those drones were going crazy.
Absolutely.
And other
In fact,
weird
I suspect
stuff.
most of what we're seeing now are drones. I really do.
And just
from Rick Ganis's wig. This is less a question, more of a kind of a statement. Rick Ganis's wig.
Nice.
Do you know who Rick Ganis is?
Yes.
He and his brother are the ones digging into the island up there in Canada. The money pit. So anyway, if 3i Atlas turns out to be a comet, as I expect, he said, how long before Stephen Greer denies he said it was artificial? I say 1 nanosecond. What do you say?
I don't think he'll even comment on it. He'll move along. There's nothing to say.
Moving right along.
Yeah, I've got other stuff to bilk people out of their money. From a Kentucky Skywatcher, who I suspect is Bill's inbred cousin from Kentucky.
There you go.
How about Ted Phillips? He presented a lot of early cases with physical evidence.
Yeah, with the trace cases and such. Yeah. I would say that he was one of the good ones from what I know.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem. When you say somebody's name like Ted Phillips, okay,
nobody knows.
Today, nobody even has a clue who that is.
Right. Well, that's the problem with so many of these people in ufology today, and that's why it's so important for them to interact with you guys, so they actually start getting a taste of some of the shit that came before.
It's kind of interesting that he would bring his name up. I haven't thought of Ted since like the early 90s. But yes, he was not known as a lunatic. He wasn't known as a grifter or a Musan or somebody. No. He seemed to have his heart and his head in the right place.
Yeah.
I agree.
So again, from
totally
Kentucky
agree.
Skywatcher, I would like to know Don's opinion on Edwin Fuhr, the Canadian canola farmer, and his UFO experience. I find this case fascinating. And that's the last question so far.
Well, okay. I personally don't think there's anything that unique about him, about his case.
All right.
Because I have heard many cases described in that manner. Now, he went out there, saw these things, didn't have a clue what the hell they were. Somebody messing around or what? This. Of course, I don't know if they had drones back then, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably
not like that. Not like that.
But once again, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stories around the world with those type of events, and there's no explanation to them. Nobody is going to come out from officialdom, okay, and give you an honest assessment of what the hell that was that you witnessed. It's just not going to happen.
Sure, it's extra special to him, right? But I mean, I don't know, Don. Would you agree with this? I get a little bit tired of people who say like pilots are trained observers. Well, they. To some extent they are, but if you're going to see something out of the ordinary, you can't train for that. No. You're going to see something inexplicable and say, well, I don't know what it was, right?
Right.
I mean, who's trained really, except Greer, who's trained to see this stuff? Because, he can call the stuff in. Come on, boys.
Well, in my lifetime, I've had 3, possibly 1 or 2 more. But I have had 3 verified sightings of anomalous things in the sky. Okay. 1966, my first experience while I was deer hunting in Pennsylvania. Okay. And I've told this story too many times. Blew me away. Got home, couldn't wait to tell my parents, convinced that it would be on the news, kind of like Carl Wolf, okay? Nothing, nada, zero.
Well, when you say verified, what exactly do you mean by using that term?
I verified it.
Well, I verified that I'm the biggest badass on the... Come on.
No, I had 3 other people with me, okay,
when
this happened.
All right.
And I can still, in my mind's eye, see that as clear as the day it happened. Then I had another one with Richard Saraday.
Right.
When we were driving over to Las Vegas for a UFO magazine thing, came back, pulled off an area known as Zizek's Road.
Yep.
Take a comfort stop. We each had about 14 gallons of coffee we had to get rid of, and saw some weird shit in the
A
sky.
Wile E. Coyote, don't you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, the hologram of Wile E. Coyote.
yeah. But anyway, sure. And so what do you do with something like that? I mean, I could say anything. Hey, I saw the Starship Enterprise. It touched down.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it never touched down anywhere. Well, this time it did. You don't believe me? I mean, so, but what do you do with those stories? There's really not much you can do with it.
I know. Hey, Bill, let's show those photos there, Mr. Skywatcher.
Yeah, come on, Bill. This is why you get paid that big money. Come on.
That's right. He said he was tired. I'm so tired today. I'm so tired.
Stop streaming in the middle of the fucking night, Bill.
Yep, exactly. All right,
I'm on my way to bed and he's streaming.
We're going to look at stars. For how long? 5-6 hours. Oh, all right. Well, I guess he's not going to. Or he's having trouble with them. Anyway. So if
or he could pop in and tell us he doesn't mind popping in any other time.
If you do a search out there are what they do is they take short videos, or as Musan says, videos. They take short videos and then they layer them, which I've never done any of this stuff before, and that's how they come up with the stills. And they had one from Extro Mars. Again, Mark D'Antonio would know about this stuff. And they had one from one of the rovers down there. And there's nothing to look at, right? Because it's not that close.
What if nature called and Bill's in the bathroom?
Well, by space, by the miles in space, they're close, but they really don't look like much. I think there is good information about 3i out there. You just got to be very careful. You really do. I mean, when I saw that last one where they said 9 craft are gonna follow it in. Beach Bum. Hi, did Don ever hear of the story where they found at least 100 animals or more mutilated on an Air Force base in the U.S.? From Beach Bum Bob.
I heard years ago from John Lear. I was down in Vegas. I forget now why. But anyway, he came out. And now, did I verify it? No, I did not verify it. But allegedly, according to him and whatever source he got this from, an entire herd of wild Mustang horses had been laid low and mutilated. Okay. Now, in Nevada, they do have wild Mustangs still running loose in the bush, so to speak, the bush. And I remember hearing that, but as far as a whole herd of cattle or something, no. That's the only thing I ever recall.
Now they say in 2022 at Nellis in Nevada, they discovered 4 cats that were mutilated. That's not what he's talking about. There's nothing that pops up here, but hey, who knows? Who knows?
They just found some Korean's lunch and think it's that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice, Gary. Very nice. No wonder you wear a man bun.
So, as a little, it goes to the psychology, Don. I'm not going to bring up the flat earth and all that stuff. I'm going to bring up, because I'm sick of it, I'm going to bring up the ascension. The take me home, Jesus. Now, that was supposed to happen, and we know if you know the scripture and all that, nobody knows. But, of course, there's always people who are going to say they know. So they said the 23rd or the 24th, that was going to happen. And they changed it to like October 7th or something.
Hey, let me tell you something. Now, you may or may not believe this, and that's fine.
That's fine.
But it's true. It's true. One time, about, 15, 20 years ago, somebody mentioned the ascension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I started thinking about it. Now, I got to be honest. When I first heard it, I thought, boy, that's some weird stuff, man.
Yeah.
But then it hit me. You know how the ascension could happen?
How's that?
A nuclear device, a tactical nuclear device detonating above your head, and suddenly you'd be ascended all over the place.
That's true. Now, I guess I will touch on the flat Earth thing when I was going down on the deep run on this, and
Someone stumbled and fell off.
And the flat the flat Earth people said this. This can't happen because of the firmament above the flat Earth. They can't get out. So they're thinking that it's going to be just people lifted up physically and not their souls, right? Lifted up and out. But again, it goes back to that psychology thing, right? About the belief of something like that, the belief of UFOs, the belief of Bigfoot, the belief of flat Earth, the belief we never went to the moon. All of these things, Don. You're 69. You're 73 now. How old are you, Don?
None of your goddamn business.
Come on, Don. Be proud. Be proud.
Hurry up. Move along.
I'm 66. Don's way older. Okay. So you would think, Don, that at this time with all this information, right, that we would have moved beyond a lot of this stuff, but it's only gotten worse, and it's made your job or your hobby, let's call it now, harder, worse to get to the bottom of this, right? It's only made the job harder.
With computers, they promised me 25, 30 years ago we were going to live in a paperless society.
Oh, yeah. It is a little bit more.
How'd that work out for you?
I will say that if you do your banking online and you don't want the bill, that is pretty cool as long as you keep it safe, that I don't get all of this happy horse shit in the mail anymore. So it's kind of gone in that route. Kind of, sort of. A little bit. I don't know, Don. It just makes it so much more difficult, right? And it should have made it easier. In the old days, Skywatcher is back. We have enough time. So let's show the first photo. I think it's from ExoMars, Skywatcher.
And I want you to know, Skywatcher, when we called for you and we received no answer, that is going on your evaluation.
That's right. Yes, it is.
Well, since that's the case, I'm going to make a statement. I don't know what pictures anywhere they are because they're not in Streamlabs. On StreamYard.
Yeah, I shared them. I'm looking at them.
All right, if you have them in StreamYard, you also have the capacity to put them up on the screen yourself.
No, I don't. I have no managerial control.
And there's no way you can just upload and put images in there if you didn't.
No, I didn't upload them. I'm sharing them straight from my desktop.
Oh,
that's smart ass.
And Don,
where were you, Bill? Where'd you go? We want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
To use a room that I don't think we need details on.
What did I say?
Yes. That's that smell. I knew I smelled it all the way in California.
Oh my God!
Were you shocked that there might be corn in it?
I did have corn with rice earlier, but it's almost like the horseshit we hear about Atlas on YouTube, like Mark said earlier. Anyway, there's two down there, Gary. That's why I came on. You want this one?
Yes. So that was taken from a bunch of short videos, and then they layer them up. It's called ExoMars. I don't know anything about it. Of course, our buddy Mark would, but that's what they came up with. Okay. Now let's show the other one, and it was taken from the surface of Mars by the rover. And I did send you some from the 2025 comet there. Gerry.
There's another one down there, Bill. You see it? There it is.
Yeah, so that was taken from the surface of Mars doesn't show much. Now, have you guys seen the bullshit photos that somebody posted of the 3i Atlas that looks like a capsule? It looks like
Yeah.
well, that's the stars that you just saw on the last one because
Right.
because you know they do. I'm not a photographer, but
It's motion.
right. But they tried to pass that off. Now there's a couple of them. I think there's a GIF, an animated GIF, and a photo of the 2025 R2, and I sent that to both of you guys. Does Gerry have that? I sent it to you. I sent you 2 emails. I'm old. I can't find it.
You said a fucking lot more than 2, you mum.
No. I sent one that says a couple of Atlas images, and I sent one that says Comet C 2025 R2 Swan.
Are you Martin Acosta Santana? That might be the email. No, it's not. I'm looking.
So I'll send it again because you can't be trusted.
I don't see the other one.
Okay, I'm sending it again. I have proof that I sent it to you. I'm not.
Well, I always star yours. I always star yours so I can easily find them.
Oh, I always star
and I'm not
yours.
seeing it. Okay, I'm not going to fucking star them anymore, Dick.
So I just sent it to you again. I like to show it before the end of the thing here. I just sent it again. One's an animated GIF and one is a photo done with a whole bunch of short videos. I sent it to you.
Yeah, I got that one.
All right, so let's send that up to Skywatcher. Make sure he washed his hands, and then he can show us what those look like.
Wash your hands, Bill. Wash them.
And this is that. And this is that one that came from around the sun. Nobody knew about it. There are estimates it's 500 times bigger than the 3i Atlas, and it's going to come way closer to Earth than 3i. It's going to be like 24 million miles. 3i is going to be 170 million miles. Nobody's talking about it. So, and Skywatcher.
It's a video.
Huh? Okay.
I'm trying to figure out.
So there's the first image, right? So that kind of looks like a comet, more like a comet, right, Don? I mean, it's got a little bit of a tail,
right?
Blah blah blah. Now, can you show the animated GIF? I don't know if you can do that up here. Yeah, but I don't know if it'll play it.
It will.
Okay, so there's the GIF. I don't know how these were taken, to be honest, but they've been confirmed that they are the thing. So. Around October, we're going to be seeing that going past us, 23 million miles away.
Today is October 13th, so
right, it's going to be in a couple of weeks, the 20th, next Monday. So next Monday again, if we're going to have Bradford on to talk about AI and the problems that's going to have, already has with ufology. Maybe we'll have an hour with Mark D'Antonio then, and he can talk about this new thing that nobody's talking about, and follow up with 3i Atlas, because he's really the only guy we know that has put eyes
in the
on
interim, if in fact 3i Atlas or this other thing are alien spaceships with assault troops and were attacked, then forget next Monday.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, because 3i is going to come by in December, so it could be a 2-pronged attack.
Oh, okay.
So. Oh my goodness, Don! My goodness. I mean,
we're getting down to the very end, gang.
Right. With all the work you've done, Don. I mean, I did some research and all that, but it was way more a hobby. I had a full-time job. With you, I can't imagine the throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm just going to go watch a fucking movie, man, because I'm so sick of this shit.
Hey, speaking of, last night I watched Silver Bullet.
I did too, last night. And
Gary Busey, that guy never gets old.
He's great, and that was 4 years before he. Right? And what was funny is that they kept on having a full moon, and I said, "Well, wait a minute, how long can you have a full moon?" You know what? Between 2 and 5 days, you can have a pretty much full moon. I didn't know that. So you can have a full moon again and again.
Well, we just got the word from Bill Skywatcher that we got a wrap. So, gang, it's been fun tonight. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me apologize up front for Gerry's foul mouth.
And that ponytail.
And no, man bun, that man bun.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, unass my ale.
Absolutely. And the Winchesters. God bless both those guys.